Hi guys, Doug Fernandes, along with colleague John Limbo for the second edition of On the Grid. I got the overnights from last week, John, through the roof.
Really?
They want to see us every day,
Yeah.
but I don't think our budget can afford it, so we're back to once a week.
And I think small bites. If you give them all at once, they're going to get greedy.
No, leave people, like the comedian said, leave people wanting more.
Yes.
You don't want to be on too long.
Keep them thirsty, but not too much.
Well, we want to keep you parched, ladies and gentlemen. But it's a big week. A lot to talk about.
Yeah.
We have most of the teams in action. You're going on the road to cover Manatee at Hoover.
Yep.
Manatee's getting a new Jumbotron. So let's try to knock these off one at a time.
Sure.
You're going on the road to cover Manatee at Hoover, a team in Alabama. This has been the trend the last several years. High schools going on the road and playing, some of them televised. Manatee's doing it. Venice is going to Stevensville, Texas. Just talk about this phenomenon. And really, what would Manatee get from going on the road and facing this team, you think?
Well, actually, first, the phenomenon itself, it kind of was born like 11 years ago, December 2004. De La Salle, the team from California, won 151 straight games. They went to Seattle, lost to Bellevue in front of like 30,000 people at what was then called Quest Field. And that got people thinking about, hey, we should do this, state versus state. And since then, like you said, it's been almost every year. I mean, it's teams, you go to Max Preps. Max Preps even has like the top 10 state versus state games. That's how many there are. As for what the teams get, they get, obviously, you see a new stadium, new level of competition, but also, too, you give kids a chance to, a lot of these kids never flown before, maybe. They don't know how to maneuver around an airport, how to pack for an airplane, what liquids you can bring, how do you stuff, never been to the hotel. So it's kind of a well-rounded thing, I think, that it gives kids a chance to, do the things we take for granted. We don't do it so often, but for them, it's a good educational experience, and you play a really good football team that you wouldn't see, here in Manatee, Charlotte, or these sort of counties.
And if you're Manatee and you're a good team, as they have been, you sort of spread the Manatee word. You go in these other states, and if you whip that team, then everybody sort of in Alabama or in that area knows, wow, those Manatee Hurricanes are really powerful down there in Bradenton, Florida.
Yeah, and same with Venice as well. Venice went to Plano and won by 2 touchdowns. It was last year, I think.
Right, exactly.
So, yeah, it's a chance to represent, the school, the community, and obviously to let people know, how football is played in other parts of the country. It's a pride thing for these kids. Obviously, there's no standings or state championship on the line, but you want to go and you're proud of your school, you're proud of your community. Why not show it off somewhere else? Manatee's
got another reason to be excited. Not only just going on the road. I read your story. They're finally getting, not finally, but they're going to approve a Jumbotron. IMG has one. Just talk about Manatee, the powerhouse in the area, just getting a Jumbotron. We ran an editorial a couple of weeks ago that saying maybe, it's old, let's go back to old school. Let's remember the way it used to be. Right. But they're getting a Jumbotron. Just talk about what that might mean to the fandom up there.
Well, it's interesting. I'm kind of curious how it's going to look.
Right,
I don't get paid to opine.
Right.
So I'm not one to say whether or not they should or shouldn't get it. It's not really for me to say. But I'm curious how it's going to look. The one thing that the people I talk to do like about it is the fact that it's not going to be for football.
Right.
They're going to use it for band activities, graduation. They play soccer matches there. So, I think one of the selling points of it wasn't just for the 5 or 6 or 7 weeks that Manatee's home during the football season. It can be used as a year-round thing. And the best part, a lot of people like about it, it's no district money. It's all being paid for through sponsors and stuff. So that's kind of, I think, one of the big reasons why I think it went through. It's going to come at no cost to the taxpayers.
And it's a pride thing. Manatee gets to show this off. You got an opponent coming in there. They take a look at that Jumbotron. They probably wish their high school had one of those. And it all goes to the standing that Manatee High School has in the area as a top program. Why shouldn't the top program also have top facilities? And the Jumbotron is one of them.
It's definitely something to see. Yeah, I remember last year Manatee went to Georgia. And that place had the coolest stadium, the coolest scoreboard I've seen in the high school. It was great. It was huge. The team logo, everything looked electronic. So I'm curious to see how it looks now it's going to be used. I'm more curious than anything else.
Last week Manatee, we don't want to revisit the classics too much because that was last week. Manatee took on a very good Lago team, destroyed them. It looks like Manatee's in top season form already. Venice lost. A very tough opponent up there in Tampa. But when you look ahead to the games, Manatee at Hoover and Venice at Stevensville, you got Booker at Riverview and you got Lemon Bay at Charlotte. Lemon Bay at Port Charlotte, always a rivalry game. I guess Jordan Ingman's first year, they lost to Manatee, so that should be a nice little rivalry matchup down there for the first week of the season.
Yeah, and you got two programs kind of on the ascent a little bit. They kind of last few years, they kind of rev those programs back up. Good young coaches in there. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty fun game, a good way to start the season. Obviously, as we talked about last week, the district games are the games that really mean something. So when you come out of the gate and play a rival that kind of gets you a little juiced up for a game that really, in the big pictures, mean a whole lot because there's no playoff ramifications. But you're playing a rival, a neighbor. That gets you pretty juiced up, and that's a game you want to win, especially with two programs like that.
Speaking of juiced up, that's a nice little segue. Booker at Riverview. I was out at the Riverview game last week against Lakewood Ranch, and after the game, Todd Johnson is addressing his troops, and he was a little fired up after the win.
Right.
And I'm standing there, and he says, now next week, those guys are going to try to get your goat. I don't want any trash talking on social media, because this basically is a cross-town rivalry. Again, social media, even at the high school level, first game, high school games, it's an integral part of communication.
It's funny, social media. I don't think John Sprague 30 years ago was telling his guys no social media. They would have said, "What are you talking about?" So no, it's pretty interesting how it is now, that dynamic, because you'd figure, well, as long as the kids stay away, well, now you just go on your phone or your laptop. And yeah, I think it's obviously he wanted to say that, obviously, no trash, no spur things on, but. Obviously that's a sign of maybe a good rivalry when the coach says that.
Sure.
So, and I was at the Booker Palmetto game last week, and I think Booker really, I think they're better than, they lost 45-7. They're better than that. And after the game, the coaches and players talked for a long time, about 15, 20 minutes on that game. So they have something to improve a little bit. And Riverview coming off a nice win over Lakewood Ranch. So that's going to be a pretty interesting game as well. That should be fun. Yeah,
Riverview had a nice performance out of their running backs, had a little problem with penalties, personal fouls. Todd Johnson expects to clean that up. John, best of luck up in Alabama.
I'm not playing, but thank you.
Right, but don't bust the expense account too much.
Oh, no, I got some cool things.
You're cool about that.
The limo I got's on a discount.
Really?
Yes.
You got that. I'm glad you took care of that ahead of time.
We're fine.
Well, join us next week. John will break down the Manatee game. Any sort of stories you have up there in Alabama, come back and tell them.
Will do.
And we'll preview next week's games, look back at the games on Friday, and we'll do all that next week, same time here on the Grid. So for John Lemble, I'm Doug Fernandes from the Herald-Tribune. See you.